You may proceed, Mr. Chair.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second meeting of the City of Providence Salary Review Commission. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Ricci,
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Stanfield,
Present.
Gianna Ochoa,
Present.
Irene Perez,
Here.
Jordan Van Lister, absent. 4 present, 1 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We're going to pick up where we left off last night. Why don't we go down to Director of Arts, Culture, and Tourism?
Mr. Chairman, before we do that, I'm wondering if we can ask our Director of Human Resources to tell us a little bit more about the methodology that went into the salary comparisons.
Sure. Mr. Director, would you explain that, please?
Yes, good afternoon, members, Chair, Vice Chair. I wanted to make sure that we explained and clarified a little bit about how these numbers were compiled. And the Department of Human Resources, when alerted that this board would be assembled, sent out requests for information to these other municipalities that we looked at, based on their location, obviously, but also their purviews, their size, and their operating budgets, so that we could comparatively look at like positions in like cities. Unfortunately, in New England, there aren't a lot of comparisons directly to Providence in terms of size, scale, and scope, but we felt that these municipalities were the most similar. And what we ended up doing, because of limited responses from the municipalities themselves, we were able to look at public data sources to acquire the salary information. So for example, Springfield, Massachusetts has a transparency portal that allowed us to access their payroll records. New Bedford actually supplied us their payroll records. And similarly, we had to look at public data mining sites that were able to collect this information. So I appreciate the opportunity, Vice Chair, to be able to clarify that so that the review board can understand how we came to these numbers. And then the spreadsheet that was created for you outlines the average salary of the 5 other municipalities. It does not include Providence. The median column also identifies the median of those 5 salaries, which of course is just organizing them from highest to lowest and seeking the middle. If there were 2 salaries, because we only collected it from 4 cities, the 2 middle ones get averaged out. And then we also indicated the lowest and the highest salary in that spreadsheet that you folks have access to. Thank you.
Does that satisfy your question, Vice Chair?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So let's go to the Director of Arts, Culture, and Tourism. Mr. Director, if you can explain this position.
Sure. This position oversees the activation of different public spaces for celebrations, cultural events. They also handle a lot of the permitting that comes with film and different art activation that happens throughout the city. When we looked at comparable positions in other municipalities, a lot of this work tends to get folded into areas of marketing or communications or promotion. So again, we couldn't find a similarly titled position, but based on the job functions, we were able to find one in New Bedford, one in New Haven. We did not have data for Worcester, Springfield, and Stamford. And it seems that based on the information we were able to find, that it is compensated above the average and the median salaries that we were able to identify for that role. Okay,
so I'm sure we're all familiar with the vibrant art scene we have in the city of Providence, Prov Fest and other festivals. And so that's what this department does. Does the board have any thoughts? The current cap, I believe, is $105,605.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
may I just add that Providence, because of the efforts of the film division of Art, Culture, and Tourism, is now the third best city for filming in the Northeast. And so we are bringing in more and more dollars as a result of those filming policies. Just wanted you to be aware of that.
thank you. Does the city have a recommendation on this salary, Mr. Director?
The city does not have a recommendation, but based on the information that is available, we do feel that the salary should be higher than the other two cities, certainly, that we evaluated, only because, as Adrian suggested, or as the solicitor suggested, there's a more vibrant, there's a bigger film scene.
Well, I for
There's
one,
a bigger celebration that occurs in Providence, I think my connection is a little poor, but if you folks can hear me, the other piece that I think should consider is that events at PVD Fest are major revenue generating events, not just for the city in terms of food and sales tax, but they also have a multiplier for economic development for all those businesses and restaurants that patrons visit during these important cultural events.
and Providence has really, for many years, tried to build this as part of our economy and our economic development strategy and tourism strategy as well. What would the next step be for this position?
The next step up would be a grade A25 in our comp and class, and it would set a range of 101,400 to 110,900. Currently, the range is 96,600 to 105,600.
Mr. Chairman, I know this isn't the actual city budget, but I always think of budgeting and things like this as part of our values, right? Where we're saying what we really care about. And Providence names itself as a creative capital. This is a director position, and yet this position and the director of recreation had the lowest caps by far. And those, I think, are two really important areas for our city. We made the decision to move the department of the director of recreation up substantially, and I would really like to see this position be in line with the other director positions. I think that the scope of the field has grown significantly. It's a major revenue generator. It helps to create a lot of jobs and opportunities, and I think it's part of how we brand ourselves as a city.
Madam Vice Chair, would you like to make a motion and state the salary that you're?
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we actually move this up to the A29 to the 134,780 cap. I believe that's in line with what we said for Director of Recreation. If I'm in error, the clerk, you can remind me that if I'm in error with that.
The recreation director was moved up to A27.
A27. Okay, so the cap of 122.
237.
237. Okay, so I'll make the motion that we move to A27 with that 122, 237.
Is there a second to the motion, please?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to move arts and culture.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Is the position currently filled?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because last year, of course, because of the pandemic, we couldn't have the festival or anything in downtown. Hopefully this year we'll have all that, depending on how the pandemic will be doing in the summer. Like, I would like to see that again.
Someday, soon. We'll return to normal.
Yeah.
This will be a vibrant area again, God willing. So there's a motion to raise the cap of the Arts and Culture and Tourism Director to an 827 has been seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you. Director of Finance, Mr. Director of HR, could you please explain this position?
Yes. Let me just pull up the spreadsheet. So the Director of Finance, when you look at the purview, obviously of managing the entire operating budget of the city, and also the Director of Finance manages all of the finance affiliate departments, so the collector, the assessor, the controllers, as well as the finance office and the budget office within finance. When we looked at comparisons, most municipalities have either a director of finance or a CFO, chief financial officer. We determined those positions to be equivalent for the purposes of this review. When you look at how other municipalities compensate, we are very much in line with Worcester, which is very similar in size to Providence. But if you look at the average salaries, we are about $4,000 beneath the average salary for this position. If we look at the median salary, it seems like we're right on target, but the median salary is Worcester's salary. So the city doesn't have a formal recommendation to bring this cap up, but I would suggest that the board make a determination based on comparable cities.
Do you want to tell us your recommendation? Or do you, if you have?
I'd say making it in line with the average of 162 or raising it to that average cap, I think would be helpful, especially if we consider future recruitment of such a responsible role in city government. It's important to make sure we can attract the best talent.
And what pay grade is that? Is there a pay
So
grade?
I believe that would exceed, I'm going to pull up the pay grade chart here. That would exceed the pay grades, and the position currently is it is oddly graded and ungraded. It has a grade, but it also has a cap that is ungraded. So the ungraded cap is this 158 salary you see here. So any increase would also be ungraded.
So you want to go from 158, 109 to 162,000 even? That's your recommendation?
Yeah, I would say the 162,212.
And it's going to be ungraded and not fit into one of the codes, one of the codes in the ordinance. Okay, so the board has heard what the administration has suggested. Is there discussion or thoughts? If there aren't any, would someone like to make a motion to raise the finance director's cap to $162,000 even? No one wants to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded to raise the finance director to $162,000. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Director, I think at this point, we did all the administration positions, and we have a couple of positions in the council, and then boards and commissions in the judiciary. Now we.
Yeah, I'm glossing over to see.
I think we have a few more, unless my records are wrong. The city clerk, the registrar of vital statistics, city sergeant, and city treasurer,
All
as
right.
well as the water supply board are the
Right.
remaining on my records.
Water Supply Board. I was holding the folks that work for the city council in a separate group, but vital statistics, that's not a city council position. That's.
No,
we-
that's
No.
administration.
Okay, I think you're right, Madam Vice Chair, we didn't do vital statistics last night. So let's do vital statistics, then we'll do the water board. Then we'll do the council positions, and then we'll do the boards and commissions. Sound like a plan? Okay. Mr. Director, vital statistics, please.
So this position is currently vacant as the administrator of the Board of Licenses has under her purview all of these duties. So the administrator of Board of Licenses oversees both the Board of Licenses office and the vital statistics office and all of the staff therein. There is a deputy director as well. So this position, like I said, is currently vacant and unfunded. The position right now is listed at $69,074. Again, there were no comparable salaries to this, and this may be because in other municipalities and other states, these records are handled either by a city clerk or they're handled at the county level.
Correct.
So with that, the city does not have a formal recommendation.
So would you have a recommendation that we just pass on it if it's vacant because it's been merged, similar to the recorder of deeds?
Yes, very similar to the recorder of deeds.
All right, then if the board wishes, we'll just pass on it. If someone rather that we deal with it and change it, please speak now. Let me know what your thoughts are. Okay, hearing none, we'll pass on that position. Water Supply Board. Go ahead.
The general manager of the Water Supply Board oversees all the operations of the Water Supply Board. As you may know, the Water Supply Board is essentially a utility service in the state for several municipalities. It is currently compensated at $192,336. We only found one municipality that had a comparable salary, or we found one municipality among these five that had a comparable position, and that was Worcester. Worcester compensated at the rate of $201,000. Given that we only have one comparison from a data standpoint, I don't have a recommendation for an increase.
Okay, I thought, who actually sets the salary though? We set the cap, but does the Water Supply Board set the salary, or does the city council and the mayor set the salary?
I believe the board has a hand in determining pay increases, but the budget is also, Tina could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but the budget is also certified by the city council.
Okay.
So
It also, Mr. Chairman, it is a pass-through that it's approved by the Public Utilities Commission in rates, and they also oversee whoever the city hires for that position. It has to be someone who's a professional engineer.
Right, I know it's a quasi entity and not just a city entity in that regard. Thank you, Madam Solicitor. Does the board have any thoughts? Would someone like to make a motion to keep the salary the same then?
I'd like to make that motion to keep the salary the same.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
One opposed? Thank you. Does this now complete the administration positions and we can go to the council?
actually, question for the solicitor. The city sergeant, I know, has traditionally been managed under the umbrella of the council departments, but I think it is the mayor's office budgetary department.
Yes, it's an anomaly. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what we would consider this under. I mean, it's going to get reviewed anyway, but I'm not
Right.
sure. My answer is technically yes or no.
Well, let's do it. It really don't matter.
Okay.
Okay. Would you explain that position, or would you like me, or?
Well, if you have more institutional knowledge, I can certainly give it
Okay,
a
I'll
quick
take it.
overview.
So the city sergeant works at the direction of the city council and the city clerk. And the position is responsible for serving warrants to the council members of meetings, delivering other documents around that need to be done. Also to be at all the council meetings to help prepare those council meetings and maintain order there. Beyond those brief responsibilities, does anyone else have any, maybe the solicitor or the director have any thoughts on what else they do?
I believe the position also has ceremonial and ministerial duties. I believe they're the official keepers of any colors or flags of the city. And I think as I was reading the charter, there were some other ministerial tasks.
Right. And these tasks need to be done, and that's what this position does. So the current salary is $60,000. I take it the administration doesn't have a recommendation. By your earlier comment, did you say that?
Yeah, no recommendation for
No
me.
recommendation.
Again, we couldn't find any data on any other city sergeant position in the city.
What's the next pay grade on this position?
I'm sorry.
What would the next pay grade be? Is this in a pay grade or is this an unclassified cap?
This one looks very quickly. This position is rated a grade A11. The range is 51.4 to 55.9.
And then the next grade?
Next grade up would be 53,804 and a cap of 58,824.
Okay. Does the board have any thoughts on this position? Would someone be willing to make a motion to bring this position up a little bit?
Yeah, I make the motion that we move this position or move the cap for this position to the next grade at $58,824.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that.
Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The next position will be the city treasurer.
City treasurer.
Now, my understanding is that a full-time job now? From years ago, it wasn't.
I think the current incumbent serves in a dual capacity. They are both the city treasurer and a senior advisor to the city council, or legal advisor to the city council. I'm not probably sure which one it is, but it's some sort of a senior advisor to the city council.
This was an end run around the salary review commission because the salary for the city treasurer was below the salary that the appointee had been earning as the internal auditor. So the council added a new position as advisor to the city council, which is not salary review. So there is a full-time position and that individual is making substantially more than the treasurer's salary. I don't know that there is a likelihood that there will be a treasurer separately and independently hired in the city going forward because it's unlikely that someone would accept that salary range. The previous treasurer had been someone who had been in public service for many years and was sort of doing it because it was public service, really.
So I think that the city I could be wrong on this. It's still considered a part-time job, and the current person is doing a different job and this job. So if they did go back to it, would be a part-time job for this cap at 60.
Yes.
What's the next grade for this position?
Let me see if it is in fact graded currently. So the city treasurer is a grade A12, which has a cap of 58,824. The next grade up has a cap of 61,729.
Well, that's there. What's the cap after that?
64,845.
Say that again, please. I didn't hear you.
64,845.
And what number is that? A14. Okay, A14. Okay, so Mike, does the board have any thoughts on this position? Then my thought is, right now, there's an arrangement where someone's doing more than one position that encompasses this position. But my thoughts also on this, as I said at the first meeting on this process, is that these are just setting caps. We're not setting salaries. So in the event that in the future, at some point, they want to go back to just having a city treasurer or whatever organizational decisions they make, that they have a little more to work with to get a qualified person. So in light of that, I would say that we would take this position to A14 if there's a motion in that regard.
I'd like to make the motion that we move that to that level.
Okay,
A14.
thank you very much. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, now that takes us to city clerk.
The city clerk's position has purview, obviously, of clerking all of these meetings and manages the office that clerks all of the council meetings, are the official keepers of a lot of the city's records, and they have oversight as to boards, committees, policies and procedures, Robert's rules, etc. They also handle, and I feel a little insecure because Tina is probably the most knowledgeable person I could talk about this, but they also handle a component of business registration where businesses certify their names. They serve as notaries for the city and oftentimes certify records on behalf of the city as well. Tina, have I left anything out about the office?
Yeah, we also have lobbyist registrations for the city of Providence.
And you maintain a journal of the city council meetings?
That is correct, sir.
And just all the meetings you attend to maintain the recordings and notes and all of that. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours for everyone there. What's the next step for this position?
So this position is currently 110,000 or about capped at 110,000. Let me just see if it verify it conforms to a grade.
Grade 25.
Grade 25.
Mm-hmm.
So the next
I
one
believe.
up, the next one up would be an A26, and A26 is capped at 116,400.
116,400. Does the board have any thoughts on this position? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to bring this up to the next cap. Was it A25?
A26.
26.
26, I'm sorry. Thank you for the clarification. I would entertain a motion to bring it to A26. And again, you know, this is so that the city council has flexibility in hiring people, and we don't know when this commission will meet again, and sometimes it's gone as for 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, and then it becomes a problem for recruitment.
So move to cap at A26 at $116,400.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Do we have any other positions that report to the city council? Did the clerk, we did the sergeant, which is quasi. We did the treasurer. I think that's it.
The only other positions that functionally report into the city council are the courts, but I think those are part of the next review.
The boards, yes, the judiciary. Okay, so let's drop down to the boards. Building, let's start it just the way we have it here. Building Board of Review chairperson and member. So why don't you explain to us, Mr. Director, what the Building Board of Review does, and then why a chair should make more than a regular board member, if you could.
So the chairpersons, just in general, the chairpersons preside over the meetings. They have to essentially ensure that the membership is attending the meetings. Most of the time, they're also overseeing the agenda of the meetings or the development of the agenda of the meetings. It is more work than just being a participating board member, because there are administrative duties that are handled. In terms of the work of the Building Board of Review, my understanding is that the Building Board of Review is looking at projects that are happening in the city of Providence to see how they comply with different regulations, and also ensuring that whatever building is going on is in the best interest of the city of Providence and its residents, businesses, and economy.
Do we know if that's a credentialed position? Do you need to be an engineer or have some background in the building trades?
I don't know that for certain. I don't know if the solicitor can comment on that.
Let's hold this position until the solicitor comes back, and let's drop down to the person who oversees it. Building Board of Review Executive Secretary. Now, here we are. The zoning board, this is basically, this Building Board of Review Executive Secretary is the person who oversees the zoning board. Am I correct, Madam Solicitor?
That is correct.
Okay. Do we know if the board members, the zoning board, so this person does zoning board and Building Board of Review?
That it's an administrative position, which provides support to both of those boards.
Okay. So let's back up a moment.
Sorry.
Board of Review, do you need a credential? Or certainly a background in the trades? Building. Well,
my understanding is that the Building Board Review for many years wasn't functioning at all. They just never had meetings. In the last few years, they have been having regular meetings, and I don't know the answer to your question about credentialing, but I have to assume that it is less important if the city could get away with not having any meetings for a period of several years.
It wasn't holding up projects, so.
Right, it was not holding up projects.
Okay. Does the city have a recommendation on this board?
I do not have a recommendation on the board chairperson and member. I do have a recommendation on the Building Board of Review.
Okay. Just hold that for a moment. We'll dispense with the board members and the chair, and then we'll come right back to that. Do the board members have any thoughts on this position?
Has there been any challenge in recruiting because of the level of compensation?
I'm not sure in terms of members, but we've had any challenge. Like Adrian said, it was inactive for a while, so I'm not sure as to the challenges.
It appears to be in line with the zoning board. I would move that we consider just keeping it at that same rate of compensation.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now, let's go to the executive secretary.
So the secretary to the boards of review is currently capped at a grade A18. As part of this review, these municipalities did not have a comparable dedicated position. However, the credentialing for this role is typically someone who has experience in engineering or architecture and requires a high level of credentialing. These types of positions are difficult to recruit for, similar to, and I know it's not on this list, but like the building official or things like that. It's a difficult position to find the appropriate candidate for when there have been vacancies. The vacancies have tended to be long-term because we're not as competitive with other municipalities that can recruit these folks easier.
Do you have a recommendation for a salary cap increase?
I do. My recommendation would be that we move it to A22, which maxes out at 95,800 as a key. Again, not necessarily if that's what all the individuals in the position would be paid, but it would give us some latitude in terms of recruitment.
Just for the board's edification, if a person was making, let's say in this position, 95,000, and then they left, the next person necessarily isn't going to make 95,000. The city would set the salary anywhere from 95 up to 95, correct?
Yeah, so the way that I would prefer to do it, and I think it's been done in different ways, I'd prefer to have a range of grades so that we have some latitude in being able to recruit for the position instead of having just one grade, because then that dedicates us. And if there are fluxes in budgetary matters, right? If we're in bad times or in good times, it really allows us to fluctuate with the job market.
Right, and the idea of this is to set a cap that's reasonable in the region, and there was some thought behind how we arrived at a cap, but also to give the elected decision makers the flexibility they may need from time to time. It's their decision. Okay, so we have a recommendation. Does the board have any thoughts? Is someone willing to put the administration's recommendation in the form of a motion to raise the salary to 95,800, and that's an
A22. I put a motion to raise the cap to 95,800.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Board of Canvas member, Mr. Director.
So the Board of Canvassers oversees the administration of elections in the city of Providence, and that is, for folks who don't know how these things work, that is a very extensive effort to oversee an election. There are polling places, there's staffing considerations, there's resource allocation that needs to be done. It's an active bipartisan board that ensures that the democratic interests of the residents and citizens are upheld and that elections are carried with integrity. In terms of looking at comparable salaries, I think from this point forward in all of the review, there wasn't any data that we could show for similar positions. The reason seems to be that in some places these are voluntary boards. In other places, I'm not sure if there's a stipend or an executive stipend that is issued to the individuals who participate, but there doesn't seem to be.
But I think also more than voluntary, these are functions of actual elected officials. So when we talk about the zoning board, in most cities and towns in the state of Rhode Island and elsewhere, the town and city councils act as zoning boards, they act as license boards. As far as overseeing elections, I'm not sure, but that doesn't seem like that would add up in my mind where the elected officials oversee an election. So they may be voluntary, but they're not Providence. They don't have the large elections, and we have another special election coming up. So there is activity for these positions, plenty of activity.
Is that a part-time position, or is that
Yes.
seasonal, just for election time, or?
I don't know. I'll let the city answer that.
It's a part-time position. However, there have been years where they've been extremely busy. Obviously, if there are special elections, once he becomes vacant, and I think we're seeing the same thing in Providence happen now, right? A council seat has become vacant. There's a special election. Let's say another elected official were to run for that seat, there would be another special election. There would be a special primary and a special general election. So this position, considering how often elections happen in Rhode Island, is active very frequently. They also keep records of voter registration. So even if there's not an election, the office is quite busy with any changes of address, new residents come in that want to be educated on their rights as voters. So it's constantly an influx of transactions.
Do you have a recommendation for the member, and then we can talk about the secretary?
Yeah, my recommendation would be, given that these positions are sometimes part-time, but during elections are full-time positions, really, because of the amount of oversight that they have, that we do increase it in the range of either $22,000 to $23,000.
Okay, does the board have any thoughts? Is there a category that this fits, like an A?
No, these are ungraded positions.
No one in the city really probably makes 20,000, right?
No.
Right, so those categories start higher, but those are for full-time jobs. I understand.
So you said 22, 23
Yeah,
average?
Well, I think you got to pick a solid number. So if we're gonna have a motion, we will need a solid number. Because we
Can put a
don't.
motion to raise it to 23,000.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We're gonna go to the Board of Licenses. And like other boards, there's the members and there's the chair. Who's the director?
yeah. So the Board of Licenses is an active board in the city of Providence. When an entity applies for a business license or any series of business licenses, it goes before the board for approval. Often the board is in a position where they are educating new business owners as to the process. Also, the board is active if there are any events in which the licensee's activities are either being questioned or the license itself is in question, such as if there's violence at an event or in a business. Often there will be what's called a show cause hearing. And so these the Board of License Commissioners have to have a strong understanding, not just of the businesses themselves, but of all the regulations, both local and at the state level, that would govern their determinations on what happens to a business depending on their rulings. So again, it's a highly responsible, also a highly visible board in the city of Providence.
I would add to that they're actually quasi judicial at times. They hold hearings that are appealable to the Superior Court of the state of Rhode Island. So they hold hearings to revoke licenses, hearings that involve fights, hearings that involve murders. Unfortunately, we all know what happens in clubs these days. And I think when things return to normal, all the clubs and areas where facilities with liquor licenses will be back up, and they do entertainment licenses as well. So they're part of the work that goes into the arts and entertainment functions of the city of Providence. Do you have a recommendation for this board?
I'd say raise it similarly to the level of the Board of Canvassers, 23,000 for the members.
And again, the chair, well, let's vote on the board, then the members will come back to the chair. Does anyone on the board have thoughts on this position? Anything to add? Is someone willing to make a motion to raise the board members, not the chair, to $23,000?
I have a question. Do they meet every weekly or how often they meet for the board?
I believe, I'm not certain, but I believe they meet 3 times a week, but also
right.
show cause hearings can be called at any
Anytime.
time. In the middle of the night, they can be called into a show
Yes.
cause hearing.
Yes, it's very busy sometimes.
Yeah, it's a very substantial time commitment.
That is, they meet 3 times a week at least. Saturday mornings if there's trouble, Sunday mornings if there's trouble, on a Saturday night for emergency hearings to revoke a license. And when they have one of those hearings, when there's an incident, those hearings can go
It
on
lasts very long.
hours and hours. So
Well, in light of all of that, I'd like to make a motion that we bring it to $23,000 as we did with the other.
okay, I think, did we have a motion on the floor for that?
I second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, let's go to the chair of that board.
Well, the chair of that board has to ensure that, especially during those emergency hearings, that there is quorum and that they are able to meet. There are also administrative duties, just like every other board chair. They have a hand in setting the agenda. My understanding is they also have some office responsibilities. I don't know if the solicitor can comment on that, but they have some responsibilities to meet with businesses that are being fined, to sometimes talk about the fines and educate them about the fines outside of the hearing process. So that is also a substantial time commitment, and they tend to be involved somewhat in the operations of the office as well.
Do you have a recommendation for the chair?
Recommendation for the chair would be to increase it to 30,000.
Okay, does the board have any thoughts on the chairperson for the Board of Licenses cap? Would someone be willing to make a motion to raise the chairperson of the Board of License to $30,000?
I put a motion to raise the chairperson to $30,000.
Would somebody be willing to second that motion?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Chief Judge, Housing Court.
Madam Solicitor, would you like to give background on the judicial?
I'm sorry, my internet is unstable. I didn't hear what you said before the word court.
Chief, we're talking about the Chief Judge of the Housing Court, and Emmanuel asked if you'd like to enlighten the board regarding the responsibilities of this position.
Sure. There are 3 judges of the housing court. The chief judge is the one who basically is setting policy for the 3 panelists, and they have been more and more involved as city programs have evolved. The Every Home program to deal not just with violations of the housing code in the city, but to see whether we could generate funding that would allow folks who are not able to address those problems in their homes to give them a leg up. And some of that is done through grant funding, through the Department of Attorney General and so forth. That chief judge has been instrumental in trying to find ways to address those kinds of issues in the city. So that is important. The housing court meets 3 times a week. Each one of those judges takes a day. They have very substantial dockets. They're writing opinions in each one of those cases. So that's basically the work that they are doing. And of course, that all of them are attorneys, and so that's time that would be lost from their regular private practices.
So the court meets 3 times a week?
It does.
It has a substantial docket each day?
It does. Yes, indeed.
Do they have clerks that assist them with the?
They have a clerk. There is a prosecution coordinator, and we have a team of 5 in my office that are getting those cases ready to go. So you can tell if you need 5 attorneys to support the volume of cases, there's a lot going on over there.
Yeah, well, actually, this was pulled out of district court years ago, and we created our own housing court.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would go to district court, the Gary court also. So it's really like a little district court.
It is, yeah. In fact, we devote more resources to housing court than we do to district court.
Do we still have a gun court as a sidebar? Do they do guns here, or is it only a gun?
It's through the Department of Attorney General because it's a felony.
Okay, so that was just a sidebar. Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. It was a big thing years ago. The General Assembly gave the city a gun. It was not created by the General Assembly. I think this was created by the General Assembly, not necessarily the city charter. And I don't see the judges themselves, just the chief judges, or should the judges come under this as well? I don't see those positions listed.
I believe the reason may have been that we were eliminating positions that reported directly to somebody else, and the 2 other judges technically report to the chief judge, but I don't know whether that's accurate or not.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation, Mr. Director, for the chief judge of the housing court?
I do not have a recommendation. I couldn't find any data at the municipal level for this position.
Okay. Does the board have any thoughts on this position?
Again, I would ask, has there been any problems with recruiting at the current rate of compensation?
People kill to get these jobs.
Not literally.
I would agree with that.
In that case, I would move that we keep the salary the same.
Is there a second to the vice chair's motion to keep the salary of the chief judge of the housing court the same?
I second.
Oh, Evan, you second that? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, let's go to the chief judge of the municipal court.
Councilor Southgate, do you want to give an overview for the judge position?
Well, I will, but I'd like to draw the distinction that the municipal court is a creature of the city council, not of the mayor's office with council approval. And so you need to understand that really that entire budget item falls within the control of the council. They are the ones who appoint those judges. They have in the past appointed additional judges to the court who are unpaid because they would get the title. So it is true that Judge Caprio not only has a large docket in municipal court and generates income for the city, but also has a very successful television program. And pre-pandemic, I was on an airplane with a lady from Alaska, and she said, "Oh my God, do you know Judge Caprio?" I had no idea that we are known far and wide. So if nothing else, we're famous because of the Providence Municipal Court. But they do have a substantial docket. There are, I believe, currently 2 judges who are formally assigned to the municipal court in addition to Judge Caprio, and then 1 volunteer judge.
Okay. I would just add to that I think, even though it's the city council, part of this process is in raising the cap, gives the city council room if they wish, along with the mayor in the budgetary process, to increase those salaries. If we don't raise them, we tie their hands. If we raise this cap, doesn't mean they're getting that salary raise. And as far as who knows if the next judge will have a TV show, that's, so you want to be able to recruit. So those are my thoughts. Does the city have a recommendation?
Have there been any issues with recruitment in these positions?
Not to my knowledge, and I do not have a recommendation on the salary. Again, for the judges specifically, I wasn't able to find any sort of municipal data.
Does anyone want to make a motion to raise the salaries there? Hearing none, does someone want to make a motion to keep the salary the same?
I'll move that we retain the salary for the chief judge for municipal court at $60,627.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, now on this one, unlike the other one we have on the sheet, the judges of the municipal court that are under the chief judge. I think it's the same analysis we just went over, but would the administration like to weigh in on this position at all?
No, it's one of the judges that serves under the direction of the chief judge.
Same thing, it's just not the chief judge. Does anyone wish to make a motion to change the cap for this position? These two, there are two people here for these two positions. Does someone want to make a motion to keep the salary the same for these two municipal court judge positions?
I'd like to make that motion that we keep the same salary.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion to retain the salary cap?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Judge probate court.
Now, again, I'm going to defer to Adrian for comment here, but my understanding with the probate court is that this is more of a unique court in that it has really state obligations that are handled at the municipal level. But I believe this court also deals with matters of inheritance, custody, well, not custody necessarily, but guardianship, and has a broad purview in terms of the decisions that it makes. Adrian, I don't know if you want to give any additional background.
No, I would add to it that is an important position. Again, these are positions that are very desirable. Many lawyers would like to be probate judge in the city of Providence because it generates a lot of downstream work. But the fact is that we've been very fortunate to have an excellent probate judge for many years. He's got an excellent supporter in his chief prosecutor. So we're doing very well there. If the board is minded to let's the level up a little bit, I think that it would recognize that at least the present incumbent has done a superior job over a period of many years. But of course, that, as the chairman pointed out, that's not really our role. Our role is simply to set.
Well, we lost you. We lost you, Adrian, for a bit on the, can you hear us? Okay, well, I'll just finish that thought then. The solicitor's connection may have gone faded. This is a court. All probate matters start at the local level, so this is a very important court, very busy court. Its matters also are appealable to the Superior Court all the way up to Supreme Court, and you could be dealing with multi-million-dollar estates there, dealing with a lot. And so I think that, does the city have a salary suggestion? I think last time, did we raise it to $75,000?
I think last time it was raised to $75,000. Yeah.
That's what the previous salary review commission raised it to, but the report was never, but the recommendations were never enacted for one reason or another that I'm not aware of. Does the board have any thoughts on this position? Would someone like to make a motion to raise the cap to $75,000 for the judge of the probate court? I'm not hearing anyone willing to do that.
Did you say to raise it to 70?
75,
Or what's the-
whatever you feel comfortable making a motion raising it to.
I make a motion to raise it to 70,000.
Okay, does anyone second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. There's a motion made to raise the probate judge's cap to $70,000 and has been seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did everybody vote? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Water Supply Board Chairperson and Water Supply Board Member. Would you like to discuss these? Please.
Yeah, I'm not very knowledgeable on the duties of the Water Supply Board or Chair Member. Adrian, do you have comment on those? I was trying to look them up and I know they're not chartered.
Yes, the Water Supply Board basically serves as the governing body for the water supply system, acting under the authority granted to them by the Rhode Island Public Utilities Commission. So they're like any other nonprofit board. They have their own legal counsel. The chair sets the policies for the board that are then implemented by the city employees. The chief engineer, whose salary we discussed earlier, they have responsibility for bonding and so forth. So because they are able to go out and issue their own bonds through the Clean Water Finance Agency. So these are important roles. The city finance director serves ex officio on that board, and I believe one or two members of the city council do as well. That's subject to check, but
No, that's true.
Okay. Does the city have a recommendation regarding the cap?
I do not. I also wasn't able to find any data on Water Supply Board members in any other municipality.
Well, maybe other municipalities don't sell water, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, one thing that the city has was a great asset from our ancestors is the Situate Reservoir. We're selling water to half the state, or, you know, I'm just approximating, maybe more than half the state. I don't know. Do the board members have any thoughts on this position?
Again, I would ask, are there any challenges with recruiting at the current level?
To my knowledge, there are not.
And I would move that we retain the current compensation for the chairperson at $4,000.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And let's now deal with the board member at 35. Same analysis. Do the board members have any thoughts on that? Are there any motions for that position? There's more than one board member, I believe. And there may be board members appointed by other entities. I'm not quite sure. It's just the city that appoints board members. Regardless, this is who we pay.
Oh.
Did you make a motion?
I will make a motion to retain it to keep the same, 3,500.
Oh, okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That takes us to the zoning board.
So the zoning board has the authority to grant relief or variances from the city's zoning ordinances. I believe they also have the ability to grant variances from the Rhode Island Building Code. So they have expansive responsibility. I believe that they meet monthly, very similar to the Board of Review. And there's the same staff person, I believe, the secretary to the boards that we talked about previously, serves as the staff person that supports this board as well. But again, they have to have familiarity with zoning ordinances, they have to have familiarity with building code, and they have to have familiarity with building standards.
Do they, so they're not really credentialed, but when you recruit, you seek people with that background?
Yeah, typically, to my knowledge, I have not been involved in the onboarding of one of these board members in my tenure as HR director. But what my understanding is that they're typically experienced in the realm of development or building.
Okay, and are there long meetings there into the night when there's issues?
Yeah, I think depending on the variance being sought, there can be extensive discussions and meetings.
Okay, does the city have a recommendation on that position? The chairperson and the member.
I do not have a recommendation based on the data we were able to.
Do any of the board members have thoughts on this position?
And ask my same question if we had any recruitment problems at this
Well,
rate of compensation.
I'm glad you're asking. It's a great question.
It's a good question. To my knowledge, no.
And I move that we retain the zoning board chair at $3,090.
And is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the board chair position of the zoning board stays the same. The motion carries. Same analysis for the zoning board member at 2575. What is the board think?
I'll move that we retain that at $2,575.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries to keep the cap the same at 2575 for the zoning board member. Other than that last item that I'm going to recuse myself on, are there any other matters we need to do, Mr. Director?
No, my understanding is we have reviewed every position here.
So nothing else. Okay.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm going to recuse myself from the position of tax board review. I'm going to leave the meeting, and the meeting will be chaired by the vice chair, Jen Steinfeld, and then she will just wrap up the meeting from that. It is the last item. So I would like to thank everybody for participating in this process. Have a good night, and thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, leave. Okay, good night.
So it was brought to my attention that we have an additional position that was left out of the documents that we have been given, which is the Board of Tax Assessment Review. So, Director, do you have numbers for us about that position?
Yeah, so in our compensation classification ordinances, all the positions that are subject to the Salary Review Commission are noted as such. However, this is, I believe, the one board that is not noted that way, and I don't know if we want to have a discussion on this board as to whether or not this board exercises purview over it or doesn't exercise purview over it. But the chairperson and the Board of Tax Assessment Review, similar to all of these other board positions, is a part-time board. The current salary for the chairperson, or the current rate of pay for the chairperson, is $44,120 per year. So $4,120 per year. And then the board members are at $3,000. I do not know of recent vacancies in this board. I don't know if Adrian knows if we have any sort of challenges recruiting for this. I would assume that.
I honestly don't know. I would assume that there would be people who'd want to serve on it, but they can get very, very busy, of course, with tax appeals when there's a revaluation. So every 3 years or every 10 years, there'd be a big bump up in the amount of work that they're doing.
Can you give us an overview of what this board does? Is it just the tax appeal process?
Yeah, I believe their main responsibility is the tax appeal process. I don't know if they have any other ancillary responsibilities, but if there's an evaluation on a property, and let's say you go from paying $4,000 a year in taxes and your taxes increase to $5,500 a year, you can go to the assessor's office, appeal. I think there's an administrative review process. If that administrative review is unsatisfactory to the property owner, they can appeal to this board. And I believe there are several appeals that get filed to this board by residents if there's a tax or an evaluation increase. And therefore this board can be very active during those years when we're doing either a revaluation or an entire revaluation, like it happens, I believe, every 9 years for the state law.
And do you have a recommendation on the compensation of this board?
I do not. I similarly looked for data, but again, most municipalities in other states that have these boards either have a stipend that doesn't get disclosed the same way that we disclose salary, or they may be volunteer, or they may be part of the ex officio duties of other members of government.
Any discussion about this position? And we're now down to 3 members and I can't make motions, so. Erin and Tiana here, it's up to you.
I'm trying to, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the page, sorry.
Yeah, it's not in our documents, so.
Oh,
It's just the tax assessment board of review, the chair at $4,120 per year currently, and the members are compensated at $3,000 per year. And we don't think there's been any recruitment problems with that.
So I make a motion that we keep it as is, in like that there hasn't been any issues with recruiting in that at that compensation level.
And can we discuss both at once? Can we take one motion for both the chair and the member, or do we need to do 2 motions?
No, you can take them both at once, just state it in the motion.
Okay.
I
Okay,
second that.
So
Okay,
like,
so the motion we're considering is that we keep both the chair and the member at the current compensation level.
correct.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's our final position to review, I believe. So we've discharged our duties. I'm gonna look back at our agenda and make sure there's nothing else that we need to discuss. This has on our agenda a discussion and possible vote on the Salary Review Commission final report. Is there an additional report we need to do beyond the statements that we've made in the last 2 days of those caps?
I believe in 2017, there was a letter issued by the review board that basically had a grid of every position and the recommended salary cap. I'm not sure if it warrants discussion, and actually having not sat in on that process previously, I'm not sure if that's prepared for the board based on the notes from these meetings and the votes, or if it is done by the board.
If I may, the previous report, I believe, was authored, to the extent that there was authorship involved, by Teresa Agonia from the mayor's office. And I don't believe Matt was present for part of the meeting, and I don't see him on the list for today's meeting. So maybe he's willing to take on that responsibility now. But Madam Vice Chair, my understanding was that there were 2 positions that were in the email. I wanted to just confirm that you've decided to leave them the same. That was the Director of Communications and the Public Safety Commissioner. If I'm out of line, I apologize.
Yes, these were 2 positions that yesterday we decided not to review.
Yeah.
which was the Director of Communications, which is a public safety position, and the Director of the Public Safety Commissioner. Those will stay at the same rate of compensation, so we
Okay.
don't have to consider them, but we just wanted to make sure that we in fact do not wish to consider those in an additional way.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So if anybody would like to move that we reopen discussion on either of those, we will entertain those motions now. Hearing no motion, we will keep it as is at the current rate of compensation for those two positions.
And Madam Vice Chair, if I might add to, if a report is done and authored by whomever, it should be submitted to the city clerk so that, Adrian, I don't know if we did this last time.
We didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. And ever after, people had been saying, well, where on earth is the report? And nobody could lay their hands on it. So yes, you're absolutely right. It should go to the city clerk.
So that we can put it on it to be received, and it will be out there for everybody.
So does it make sense for me to connect with Matt Shoemate and determine if a report should be authored, and if so, who shall do that? And we'll, I guess, reconvene if we need to vote on a final report.
I mean, Matt Shoemate is in attendance. I can allow him or promote him if you wish to speak to him.
Yes, let's do that.
Just give him a minute to switch over.
Good evening,
Good evening, Mr.
Hi.
Shoemate.
There you are.
Madam Clerk, members of the Salary Review Commission. Good evening, Mr. Director.
So I believe you were listening to the discussion. We're just discussing whether or not there will be a final report issued, and if so, who would author said report. The previous commission did not issue a report. Prior to that, it was authored by Teresa Agonia in the mayor's office.
Yes, so I will put forth a report made on the recommendations that you all provided.
Wonderful, thank you. And will we need to then schedule a future meeting to accept and vote on that final report and ensure that that's submitted to the clerk?
I defer to the solicitor.
Oh, I don't know that you actually have to have a meeting. I think if it was circulated to all members, and if anybody found any errors or other reasons why we needed to get together, then we could do so. But otherwise, I just set a drop dead date and say, if nobody has responded, we're going to go ahead and submit this to the clerk on whatever date you choose.
Great.
Perfect, I love last meetings.
Upon that recommendation, I will share the said report with this body before submission to the city clerk's office.
Excellent, thank you so much. And
Madam
the
Clerk,
records from the meeting will be available as well, correct? The minutes, we can compare the minutes of the meeting to the report and make sure that everything is in line.
We will put the recordings up. It takes us some time to get the minutes together. As far as like written minutes, that'll take us some time to do. So I'm not sure if it'll be in line with the timeline that Matt would need them for.
Nonetheless, the members have the opportunity to review the recordings and to make sure that there's a comparison between what we've said and what the written report compares in case we want to make any corrections or changes to that.
Right.
Perfect. Great.
And can I just ask one point of clarification with the solicitor? Can they vote on the final report tonight? The condition, Mr. Shoemate will put that together so that they don't have to reconvene as well?
I'm sorry, I missed some of what you said. This stupid internet keeps going in and out. Say it one more time.
Sure. Does the commission have the ability to vote on the final report tonight on the condition that Mr. Shoemate will put it together and circulate it to the members and submit it to the clerk?
Sure, that's a lovely way to tie it all up so that it's clear on the record. Thank you for that suggestion.
Perfect. Then we'll entertain a motion that barring any need to make changes to the final report as prepared by Matt Shoemate, that we will support a written report summarizing all of the decisions made by this body over the last 2 days. Would anybody like to make that motion?
I'd like to make that motion.
Thanks. I
And
second that.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful, the motion carries. And I think with that, that concludes our business. Is there any additional discussion or any additional, anything else anyone would like to say into the record?
I'd just like to thank the members of the board for their time, specifically over the last couple of weeks while the entire process played out, and for your attention to detail for all of this. As HR director, one of my charges is to ensure that we have the most competitive processes to get qualified, competent candidates in the role of government and public administration. And it's a very serious charge. So I thank you for empowering the city via this board to continue to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Appreciate that and the service of my neighbors in the city and all of the city staff. Thank you for your help in making sure that we could discharge our duties properly. And we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I put a motion to adjourn the meeting tonight, 6:53 p.m.
Second? Tiana, do you want to second that?
Yes, second, sorry.
Perfect. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Great. Well, then thank you everyone for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and Matt will look for that report in the coming days.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your service.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.
Night.